Hello everybody, this is Gareth from the iMoot team. It is my great pleasure to introduce Fred Dixon, the project manager of BigBlueButton and sponsor and grateful sponsor of iMoot. We're going to talk about BigBlueButton project update. Thank you for your time, Fred. I'm really looking forward to this.
Thanks, Gareth. So I wear two hats. I'm involved in a company that provides commercial support for BigBlueButton. We're entrepreneurs, and more importantly, I'm the product manager for BigBlueButton. So I'm the one responsible for all the releases. If there are any good things to say about the product, please give them to the developers. If you have any feedback or anything you'd like to see improved, please let me know. So I'm going to walk through just very briefly a little background on the project so you're aware of BigBlueButton and kind of know the history of it. Bring everybody. I'm not going to assume anybody knows about BigBlueButton. So I'll probably talk about 15-20 minutes. So there's a huge trend towards online over the last number of years. If you look at the stats, there are about 4,500 degree-granting institutions in the United States alone, and about 25,000 secondary schools. So I Googled and found this data. This number would probably be 10 times worldwide. And there are huge benefits for students around the world to access online learning, as evidenced by the growth of Moodle over the last over 10 plus years. Amazing growth and a huge social benefit that Moodle provides. So if you look at the real-time learning, the synchronous learning, it's obvious to ask, well, Moodle's open source. What are the open source solutions for synchronous learning? That's where BigBlueButton comes in. We believe every student with a web browser should have access to a high-quality online learning experience. We intend to make that possible with BigBlueButton, and BigBlueButton is open source. It has been an open source project for almost 7 years now. It got started in 2007 at Carleton University. And you can tell it's a university because they are still using a chalkboard. And that's actually Richard Alam, the CTO, back in the early days when I first met him, describing to me what the project was. You could see the client, and you could see something to take PDFs and turn it to Swift files. And here was Asterisk was now free switch, and you could connect to the PSTN, and the pieces are there. And we've been working on the project since then, and it became an open source project, I think, in 2008. There are 3 use cases that we focus on BigBlueButton for online learning, and that's the target market we focus on. One-to-one, which is virtual office hours, student coaching, student retention, online tutoring. The second is small group collaboration. And the third is one-to-many. One-to-many here is kind of what we're doing here. One person's talking, many people are listening, and usually you see people chatting. But in BigBlueButton, it's designed to be a highly collaborative environment. So in small group collaboration, you could have 10 people sharing webcams and talking at the same time. And in one-to-many, you can have even more people sharing webcams, and everybody could be talking. So it's not a webinar application where one person talks and one person shares their webcam. I've seen an example where there were 21 webcams shared. And here are the number, you'll see this all over our documentation. We say recommend 50 users or less. It's not hard-coded. I know of sessions that have been much larger. The keynote session for Martin Dugiamis' presentation, I think it was like 67. We've seen much larger sessions, but we like to be conservative because we like to exceed people's expectations. And plus, a lot of the developers are Canadian, and we're conservative by nature. This is the interface. You've all seen it if you've been using the iMoot. We do the 5 core key capabilities for collaboration: audio, video, slides, chat, and desktop. A couple screenshots. So here's an example of 3 people or 4 high-definition webcams being shared, just a different layout. Here's an example of 9 webcams being shared. And here's another example of 9 webcams being shared. I mentioned the layout. You can all change your layout in the lower right-hand corner. You can choose a different layout, whether it's focusing more on the video or the presentation, or go back to default. There's the little layout in the lower right-hand corner. And the sessions are recorded. And this is what a recording looks like. This is on the open source side. Hosting vendors can provide different playback formats, but we capture and playback all content in BigBlueButton, everything except the private chat. I want to talk about the growth of the project. So what's happened since we released it as an open source project in 2008? Well, a few years ago, we went on Facebook. We're up to about over 4,000 likes. Twitter, I'm sure over 2,500 followers right now. I like to say it's all organic, no special preservatives. We didn't pay anybody to like us, or we didn't pay anybody to follow us. It's literally just organic growth. This one, though, is interesting because on GitHub, where our source code was hosted, we moved to it about 2001 or 2. There's a lot of activity on the project, many check-ins, and you can always look at the forks to see what other GitHub users have forked the project. So it's probably, again, around 2,500. It's a very active open source project. In terms of our developer community, we have a developer mailing list. It's on Google Groups, and that's grown too over the years. I remember when there were 3 people, 3 of the developers on the project. Now there's about 1,900, probably close to 2,000. And then lots of traffic each month, lots of good discussions, lots of people talking about the product, asking questions, and we try to give really good support in the developer forums to support other developers who are interested in using BigBlueButton, integrating it, building on top of it, and so on. We have all our localization done by the community. We use transifex, and we upload all our language strings. There's about 4,500 name value key pairs for the strings. And over time, there's been I think there's like 150, probably closer to 200 members who've signed up and help us localize. The Welsh language was localized a while back. And I just pointed out, these are the ones that are over 90%. As we get close to release, people come in the last and pitch in and make sure it's 100%. And you can see this is a snapshot a little while back. Russia, Portuguese, Italian, Hungary, German, French, all 100% covered. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner of BigBlueButton's client, you can see there's a pop-up menu, and you can choose different languages. It'll pick the locale of your browser by default, so you'll come on the language you're using. We have developer summits every 6 months in the project. There are many developers worldwide. It's a good concentration of developers in Brazil, specifically Porto Alegre. And there's a university down there that has been using BigBlueButton for many years, and they have developers who have been working on it for many years. So we tend to travel down to Brazil once a year and spend a week with them working on the project, the roadmap, and so on. The summit that we had in November 2015, and this was the one we had, it's actually the 6th summit. This is the one that we had just a few weeks ago. This was in Ottawa, Ontario. There are 6 core committers in the project. These are the ones that have commit rights, and any commit goes through them. There are kind of 2 ways of doing an open source project. You could have lots of people just contributing code and just many people contributing. However, in a real-time system, you really do need to focus on stability. And that's what I do with my project hat on, is we have a hierarchy in terms of priorities. It's stability first, then it's usability, then it's features, then it's security, then it's scalability. And the security, the stability first is paramount. So it doesn't matter if whatever the feature is, if it's not stable, it doesn't matter. Then it's usability, doesn't matter what the feature is, it can't use it. Then it's the feature, then it's security, then it's scalability. So these people have been working on BigBlueButton for many years. And it's not a closed group. There are other people out there actively working on BigBlueButton, and the committers can vote to include another committer in. Certainly, if you're interested to contribute to BigBlueButton, there's a documentation website below that you can go to, and there's lots of stuff that always people can help out with. Okay, so adoption. Lots of adoption, and I'll talk about Moodle in a moment. Here's Darren Ricketts, the University of West Scotland. They did a tutorial or a statement of their use of BigBlueButton a little while ago. It's on YouTube. It's also on their blog. Very large and very small universities use BigBlueButton. For example, University of Florida uses it. I think they use Moodle as well. I know they use lots of LMSs. National University College, they moved to BigBlueButton about a year ago, and they're quoted as saying that with the previous solution, they had over 50 support tickets a month. And after switching to BigBlueButton, that number dropped to 7 or 6 tickets. So from a product manager point of view, this makes me very happy. We want functionality in the project to increase, whereas the ability to support it or the support effort required to use BigBlueButton decrease. If we can have those trends going forward, then I believe the project is headed in the right direction. And you can see it in BigBlueButton. You could probably name a feature we don't have, and I'll talk about them on our roadmap, but that's okay. Our focus is do the very core things necessary to enable a remote student to have a high quality online learning experience. let the student and teacher get on with their job, and ideally just fade in the background. The integration, lots of integrations around. WordPress is one of them. We've had a WordPress integration for a number of years, over 1,000 active installs. Sakai, so it's important to know that other LMSs also use BigBlueButton. Again, our focus is online learning. The more LMSs that use us, the more momentum is behind the project, the faster the project itself improves, and the more all LMSs benefit. So I touch on these just so that you know there's a wider picture. The Sakai integration, we manage it as well, the Sakai meeting tool. Schoology recently embedded BigBlueButton into their product. Canvas has been using BigBlueButton for many years. And then there's Moodle. So I'm actually the co-author of the Moodle integration. Jesus Federico is the other one who works on it. He's done most of the development in the last couple of years. We put a lot of effort into the Moodle integration. Our belief is that we really want a high quality integration so that it looks like a Moodle, part of the Moodle as an integration would. I took the screenshot just a few days ago. In the last 12 months, it's been downloaded over 100,000 times. That's more than all other web conferencing plugins combined. And we keep it up to date. So as Moodle introduces a new version, we're on top, making sure that the plugin is current and it gets released right after the new release Moodle comes out. I found this chart when I was looking through the stats. This is the number of sites using the plugin. So you can see, according to Moodle, there's 2,659 sites using the BigBlueButton plugin. That's awesome. It shows that it's being used and a lot of users are benefiting from it. I'm going to switch over now to development. This is more the techie side. I won't spend a lot of time, but in terms of the pieces of BigBlueButton, there actually are quite a few pieces. There's the client, which you're using right here. And in terms of how it communicates to the server, it communicates through Nginx. That's loading all the files, the static files, and so on. It makes connections to a real-time server called Red5, which handles things like the apps, the video, and voice if you're using Firefox, or sorry, if you're using Safari or IE. If you're connecting through Firefox or Chrome, the client, specifically the web browser, goes right directly to FreeSwitch using WebRTC audio. And that's something we did recently to improve the audio capabilities of BigBlueButton. WebRTC rocks. It is amazing. And the browser, Firefox and Chrome, do an excellent job of supporting it. And then there's the backend hooks here. We use Redis for capturing all the events that go on during a session. Red5 is capturing the media, the video, FreeSwitch is capturing the audio. All these events get packaged up at the end of the session, and they get turned into a file, which is handed off to another set of workflow to process the recordings into playback. And then that playback is available through the API call, which is how you can see the recordings for iMoot inside of Moodle. The development, we just finished up our last release. It was our 12th release. There was 17 months of development in total. This gives you a perspective of what's involved. We had done 11 months of development. We're implementing the new features, and then we did 6 months of beta testing. So after the features were done, we ran BigBlueButton in 6 months. And I know some commercial companies ran it in production for a good chunk of that time. And during that time, we, the core developers, basically looked at what are every issue along with the release, and we tweaked a few things along the way. And our philosophy is if we do a really good job on every release, then people have a really good experience with BigBlueButton. So this goes back to the stability first and features and so on. After 6 months of beta testing where we fixed everything we could find, we did a release candidate. And our process is we do a release candidate, and the only thing we can change on that is just the label. And we put it out there for 2 weeks, and we just see if there's anything that happens. We were pretty sure we had the release candidate in hand because we've been running BigBlueButton for many months in production. And then we released it on April 30th. And that's the release that we're using here for iMoot. So looking ahead, what's sort of next for BigBlueButton? And again, with my product management hat on, I listen to a lot of things that people are asking for. The 2 things that we're working on are polling and closed captioning. Support for students with accessibilities is very important to us. BigBlueButton already supports students with screen readers using JAWS. Every release, we have an external company audit the accessibility for BigBlueButton, and they give us an accessibility statement, which we put up on our website. And this is the last big thing that we want to put in place, and that is do closed captioning. So you can imagine there will be another layout option where you could switch to that would be enabling closed captioning. If you're a moderator, you'd have the ability to type into a text box, choose a language, and then start annotating or capturing it, or captioning it. And then as a viewer, you could pick which language you want to follow. And we would take all those as events, and then in that record and playback process I talked about earlier, we would make the closed captioning part of the playback. And I'll speak a few moments about polling module in terms of our design. One of the things you're going to see is what we're thinking of in terms of the design. And there's some updates. We're going to improve the video doc, more secure desktop sharing using TLS over Stunnel. That's just secure desktop sharing. There's some API updates to get more visibility into get meeting and get meeting info. That's sort of going on with the meeting. And we're putting in place webhooks, which third-party developers, when they set up a BigBlueButton server, they could also register with a component, webhooks component that would say, give me a callback when a meeting starts or a meeting ends. And it allows for tighter third-party integration with BigBlueButton. The video doc is kind of fun because it has some immediate visual appeal. The videos right now in BigBlueButton all have like border around them, like little windows. What we did was we took away the windows and we made it much more streamlined. This was contributed by MConf, one of the the project in Brazil that's been working with BigBlueButton. So here I got some screenshots of what 3 videos would look like. Here's a video strip at the bottom, and here's the videos, just in a checkerboard manner. So again, if you had 4 videos, 5 videos, 6 videos, it would all checkerboard in the most optimal way. And you can always click on a video and make it larger than others, which is what I did here. Okay, so the polling module. I know lots of people are looking, have been interested in it. And going back to one of the things about doing an online presentation or an online class is you also want to have lots of student engagement. And obviously polling is an excellent way to do it. So here's the design we have for polling and feedback welcome. We wanted to make it really simple. The judgment I used was how quickly could an instructor initiate a poll. So we'll have a button. The instructor or the presenter will have a button next to the upload presentation. And in it, there'll be the ability to create a poll, or there'll be some pre-canned polls. These are quickly going to say, like, do you agree with this? And you could just say yes, no. Or there might be multiple choice. You may have a slide that says, what do you think of these 3 topics? And you could literally just say, what's your choice, A, B, or C, and have a quick poll based on what's on the slide. When the instructor does the poll, immediately what will happen is they'll see, so here's an example I chose, what's your choice, A, B, C. They'll see the preview of it. This is what the viewers will see. And they immediately can start the poll, and they can also allow multiple responses. So by default, it will be single choice, but you could allow multiple choice. If you want to edit it, then it'll take you over to the screen which shows the poll just as a text field, 1 line per entry. So the first line is the question, and every line after is the answer. Previous iterations of polling had fields and so on, but many people are familiar with Markdown or just simply editing text. Once you see a couple examples of this, it's like, wow, this is really easy. All I had to do is just type in the question, hit return, enter the first response, hit return, and so on. So you can edit this, and then you go back and you can preview it. So with a little back and forth, we pretty much believe people will quickly grasp how you format a poll. So once you start it, and down here as well, the idea is we could also make it a little more intelligent. We could literally make it a paragraph. Just the first question, the question ends with a question mark, and then everything else, and every other choice ends with a period. It's not hard to come up with other ways to parse it, just so that you can just basically enter the text in, or copy and paste from something if you want. If you start it, then on the viewer screen, what appears is what you saw in the preview. They have the choice, they can choose it, and they can submit. And if it's multiple choice, they would be able to choose multiple options. For the presenter, what they would see is a real-time update of all the responses coming in. So as the other members in the session respond, you'll see this number increment, and you'll see the bars here change. So you'll see the number of responses and 20 the percentage. Really simple. And our belief is at this point, there may be times where maybe you don't want this published as part of the playback. This will just be you're asking questions. People will probably respond pretty quickly because the dialog box will come up asking what the response is. And the instructor here at this point can choose to close it, or they can publish it. So one of the things we struggled with was, how do we publish the poll so it can be made part of the playback? Well, we kind of had a flash of insight by looking at, if you had took this screen and I saved it as a PowerPoint, single page PowerPoint, and then uploaded it, well, it would become a presentation and would become part of the playback. So wouldn't it be great if we could take the results from the poll and turn them into a presentation, a graph like this, and have it put up into BigBlueButton? Well, you would need to use something like PowerPoint to do it, or we have LibreOffice on the server. So it turns out LibreOffice, you can create a template file, which is just text, and then we can insert the values into that template file, call LibreOffice to turn that into a PDF, and then put it up as a presentation. And what will happen is after you click publish, a few moments later, the poll results will appear. It's part of the presentation. You can then now annotate it. You can highlight. You can do anything that you want with it as an instructor. And when you're done, you just go back to the last page of your presentation and continue where you left off. So that's polling. That's it. We just tried to make it as super simple as possible. And that's what you're going to see in an upcoming release. BigBlueButton is based on Flash, the Flash client. And we do that because we're pragmatics. And many years ago, when we started the project, this was really the best way to create a real-time client in the browser. And today, it still works really well. iMoot is running on this, and I will bet many people who are using BigBlueButton don't really care how it's written. They just care that they're able to interact with instructors, see the slides, chat back and forth, and so on. But the browsers have gotten much more capable over the years, certainly with WebRTC audio and video. So we've been working also on an HTML5 client, which is going to help us provide mobile access as well, especially from Android. So this is what the latest screenshot looks like. This has been in development for quite a while. We have a developer release of it now on our website, where we provide instructions and an architecture overview on how to set it up. So it's going to be a view. It's going to be targeted towards students. So you won't be a moderator using HTML5 client. You will be able to join as a student. You'll be able to see the teacher. You'll be able to see the presentation, see the desktop sharing, two-way audio, two-way chat. The video parts will come later, but we can get in enough functionality where the student will be able to participate in a session. And then we can build on that by providing more presenter capabilities, and then build on that by providing more moderator capabilities. And where that road leads is at some point, the two clients will become parity. But right now, we've modified the back end. Again, another techie diagram here. We've modified the back end, so regardless of whether the user joins in the Flash client or they join an HTML5 client, we've unified the messages in the back end. That took us quite a while. But what it means is that it doesn't matter how the users join. And the instructor, if they were seen, so you see users in the users list here, there might be 10, 20, 30 more users, and you don't have to care if they're on the HTML5 client. One of the promises of BigBlueButton is you never have to ask the users, can you see what I'm pointing at? So if I zoomed in right now and someone was using HTML5 client and I pointed at this, they would see exactly the same as the users on the web client. And in terms of just for those who are technical, we use MongoDB to handle lots of the data. Meteor is handling many of the messages in the state. This is communicating through Redis, through PubSub, and the events are getting written as well. So if you are on the HTML5 client, you chatted, that event gets written just like a chat in the Flash client, and it gets recorded and played back just like anything else. It's literally another entry point, an additional entry point into the system. So what we're doing for the HTML5 client is sort of a phase one, two-way audio and chat, view the desktop sharing, view the presentation. And I think we're going to be able to do just advance the slides. So you might be able to be made presenter. The idea is you may be on a mobile device, or you may be on a transit system. You whip out your Android phone or your Android tablet. You're listening to the presentation, and maybe the instructor uploads your slides and says, okay, can you make the presentation? And you're able to just advance the slides. Just really super simple stuff, enough for a student to participate in a session. I've emphasized that we build it on WebRTC, and that means that we can use Chrome or Firefox, and certainly on Android, it would be Chrome. I would love if Apple supported WebRTC in their browser on iOS, iOS being for iPad and iPhone. They haven't, and probably they won't because they're very successful. They would just like you to write an application or an app for it, which we are doing. But in terms of the priority, the HTML5 client is getting the most effort for us now because we think there's a big win both on the mobile side and just moving the entire architecture towards that. But again, we're pragmatists. You're going to see lots of future development in the Flash client because honestly, it works really well. In terms of the phase 2 for the HTML5 client, there'll be two-way video, more presenter capabilities, so be able to move the mouse around on the tablet as if I'm moving the mouse here, maybe do some annotations as well. And then phase 3 will be full parity with the desktop client. Okay, so even looking a bit further ahead, there are a number of things that we know we still want to do with BigBlueButton, and I hear from folks. One is breakout rooms. Another is shared whiteboard. Multiple people could be annotating the whiteboard at the same time. Synchronized video playback. If I wanted to play a video file through BigBlueButton, could I start and stop it and be convinced and be assured that every client starts and stops at the same point on the video as I do? This one's not too bad because most people will have their videos in Vimeo or YouTube, and you can just paste the link into the chat. And then you can tell the students, all right, there's a video of the pitch. It's 2 minutes long, go watch it. I'll be right here, come back in 2 minutes. And they all click it, they all watch it in their browser, and they come back. And shared notes as well, if you want to have collaborative note-taking in the class as well. And then the mobile side as well, native iOS client. And if we do it, we can probably do a native Android client as well. Right now, we're looking at using Adobe's tools for Adobe Air to cross-compile for Android and iOS native application. And it actually works really well. Like we've done it a number of iterations. There's still much work to do left, but we're going to be focused on the HTML5 client, but it actually works really well. And then, of course, beyond that, we could literally write a native client. So you may see that in the future, but again, users, they don't care. They just want it to work. Yes, and we release on quality, not dates. So I have looked at all the past releases of BigBlueButton, and I have seen times where it's like, oh, it's the summertime. I think we're getting close to release, and we'll be talking to developers. We're getting really close. We get to beta, and then we test, and we test, and we test. And month after month, we just do a hard target search. So the last release, we did it 6 months of development, and we're just not enamored with release dates. We don't think anybody cares. They all care about is quality. Yes, you would like to know a date, but it's an arbitrary number. Anytime and I believe I watched other open source projects struggle with this. And as soon as they give a date, they may work really hard on it, and they may deliver after the date, and then you'll see people post saying, "Well, you're late," and it's like, God, guys, they're developers building this for you under open source, but it's just perception. So my priority is not dates. My priority is quality, is the stability, the usability, the features, the security, and scalability in that order. And I would love to see it HTML5 client come out by year end, but it will come out when it's ready. And you'll see us in beta. So it won't just appear. It will be very visible in the community. We'll get lots of feedback on it. We'll have lots of people using it. And you can see as we get closer to a release candidate, you'll know that we're getting closer to a release. There are some other projects, other features that I call them side projects, but things that are not really hard to do. This one I always laugh about, emote icons or emoji icons, adding some emoji icons. It would be actually very simple for us to do it. It's just that we're focused so much on the core capabilities that we've never actually stepped back and done it. But I listed here as a side project. Thumbnails for recordings. So if you're looking at the recordings in Moodle, could they pop with some thumbnails? Faster desktop sharing. I've talked about WebRTC audio. There's obviously WebRTC video, and both Firefox and Chrome support desktop sharing through WebRTC video. So you may see some faster desktop sharing in the future. Full screen support and support for right-to-left languages. And feedback is always welcome. You can join our community. We always love it when people post to our developer mailing list, posts such as, hey, we've been using BigBlueButton for a while, and we'd just like to give some feedback on what we'd love to see in the future version. A lot of people post questions for help with BigBlueButton. Every now and then, someone posts, I just want to say something like this, maybe they really like the project or so on. That's very welcome as well. The developers love to see it. So if you tweet or blog or post to Facebook or post to a forum, you can always share what your experiences are with BigBlueButton. And we are interested in all experiences. Again, good things go to the developers. If you want improvements or you found any issues, you can tell me. We have a new documentation website for BigBlueButton as well. And it's at docs.bigbluebutton.org. And we did a complete revamp of it. So lots of good information there as well. Okay, so that's a really good update, sort of like the history of the project, our growth, the integrations, the development, what we're doing from near term, where our roadmap is. You can, certainly the different platforms we're targeting. At this point, I would be more than happy to answer any questions folks have. Just type them in the chat if you'd like, and I will stay here as long as there are questions. So Gareth, we won't actually do anything regarding saving or re-uploading of the polls. We think it'll be pretty quickly to do them. Like you could literally have an editor. You could really have like a text pad with a bunch of polls all ready to go, and you would just go create a poll. The idea is, if the format is literally just, first line is just the question mark and the next couple lines of responses, you could literally create a poll. It'll take you to here. You enter, you paste in the poll, click preview. It'll take you back here. Everything looks good, and then you start the poll. Are building your new help source in a Moodle? No, actually we use GitHub for the hosting the source code, and we use Jekyll for doing the website. So GitHub supports building static websites using Jekyll, and that's what we used. And we could actually support a JSON format as well. We could literally add some ways to detect what the users pasted in. And if you wanted to do JSON format, we could probably support that as well. Does it run as a standalone product or launch only as a plugin? So Larry, BigBlueButton, there's no standalone BigBlueButton client. We kind of figured out a long time ago that doesn't really make sense. And in fact, almost every other web conferencing system now, it's all web-based. Some of them will have you install a plugin, which there's challenges if your computer's in an institution that's locked down. No, BigBlueButton is a web-based application. You just go to a website, just like you did in Moodle, you click, and it launches the client. The client's in Flash. We recommend Firefox and Chrome as the browsers, though IE and Safari will work fine. You'll just get better audio on Firefox or Chrome. And you can even use it in a Chromebook. The Chrome in a Chromebook is the same Chrome on the desktop. So the Flash is already there, and it actually works really well. And Linux is fine too. We would recommend that you use Chrome on Linux, not Chromium. Chrome has the latest version of Flash built in. So if you fire up the Chrome browser, you'll be able to join a BigBlueButton session. Absolutely. So Sam, you can use BigBlueButton and really any third-party application. There's a very simple API for interacting with the BigBlueButton server. Create a meeting, join a meeting, get info about a meeting, end a meeting, get recordings, publish a recording, delete a recording. And I think there's only one or two others than that. So if you look at the Moodle plugin, for example, what it's literally doing is a front end to those API calls. And the WordPress integration is a front end to those API calls. So it's really easy to integrate. If I look at what Moodle would look like here, if you had a Moodle site and you had the BigBlueButton integration installed, you can install it right within inside of Moodle because it's off of bigmoodle.org. You can create an activity link. You can give it a name, a welcome message. You want it to open up in a new window. Do you want the moderators to wait, or the viewers to wait, students to wait until moderator joins? And you can access the recordings afterwards. So here's a good example: the recordings BN integration. So this is, you see this in the Moodle, in the iMoot courses. When you click on it, it literally makes an API call to the BigBlueButton server and says, "Get me all the recordings for this course." And you could have 4 or 5 activity links in the course that all go to different BigBlueButton sessions. And all the recordings will be gathered together in one place. There are lots of integrations with BigBlueButton around. I know many other systems, Elg, ATutor, gosh, I just can't remember them all, but there are many integrations for BigBlueButton now, and they're literally all front ends to the API. Other questions?
Hi, Fred. It's Gareth and the iMoot team. Just while we're waiting for those all to come in, may I thank you very much indeed for yet another, good BBB presentation. I remember yours from last year. I really love the way that it works, and like the hopefully polls and everything else that will come along, and your emphasis on quality is just it's just brilliant. So once again, thank you very much indeed for your time and for your presentation.
My pleasure. And I see Larry, other than just installing the plugin, is there other arrangements that need to be in place to use it? So one thing about BigBlueButton, which may not be immediately apparent, is you need to have a server to run BigBlueButton. So installing the plugin is really installing the connector to a BigBlueButton server. So if you want to set up your own BigBlueButton server, if you're a developer, techie, the documentation's there. It's very, very detailed. And how you can set it up, all the requirements. I'll actually paste a link to it in the chat. And it's not hard to get a dedicated server that meets the requirements for usually a quad-core server, at least 4 gig of memory, 100 megabits symmetrical bandwidth, because you're going to be doing real time. So, and it runs on Ubuntu 14.04, 64-bit. So if you get a server that matches those requirements, go through those docs, you can install BigBlueButton on it. We like to say that we're the only open source project with a money-back guarantee. If you can't install BigBlueButton in 30 minutes or less, we'll give you your money back. I write the installer and the installation documentation, so I feel pretty comfortable saying that. And obviously, if you have any troubles, you can Google, and you can always post to our BigBlueButton support mailing list, our BigBlueButton setup mailing list, and there'll be people there that'll help you out. Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, we only had emoticons. It's always a juggle of priorities. The last release, the priority was, a lot of what priority was on audio. We had 2 goals. We wanted to improve the audio on BigBlueButton, so WebRTC, and we wanted to improve the likelihood that students and teachers entered the session with a functioning microphone. Because in the previous release of BigBlueButton, you could just click join, and maybe your microphone worked and maybe it didn't. So for those of you that have joined with the microphone, you would have gone into a private echo test where you had the opportunity to say a few words and hear the audio go all the way to the BigBlueButton server and come all the way back in your headset. And if you heard it and you said yes, then we know that you have a functioning microphone. And the other thing we did was a listen-only mode, which some people have joined listen-only here. And that tells the instructor that the student can hear them, but they haven't activated their microphone. Whereas in the previous release, you always just saw a microphone, and it led to these scenarios where the instructor would ask a student to say something, and the student would try, and maybe the microphone wasn't working. You know, typing in the chat, my microphone's not working. So all that, going back to emoticons, there were other things that we really wanted to work on first. And there always seems to be a few of those, but that's okay. We'll get there anyway. Yeah, I'd love to do a Moodle podcast.
Actually, we have, Fred, one question. When I was teaching, I had some students who really had difficulties reading black text on white backgrounds. And what I found with them is, instead of having on my whiteboard a black pen, I'd have a blue pen, and then they could read things. Is that something you'd consider?
You are the first person, Gareth, to ever mention that. So,
right.
Are you talking about like annotations, like with the whiteboard, or more pervasive in the application?
I mean everything. I mean, not necessarily the presentation, but the public chat, the number of users. I know I'm highlighted myself here as blue. I mean, there's a lot of arguments and discussion about it. I know in terms of the Royal Society of the Blind and those sort of organisations. But I know some students, when they had difficulty reading books, had difficulty, and they used to have like a coloured see-through sheets, and they put that over the books, and it helps them. And there's been something on the news just within the last week that says, oh, there's nothing wrong with your eyes, but still parents swear by them, the students, the kids swear by them. And it's more of maybe not the actual eyeball, but the way the brain's working. So there's lots of research going on in terms of eye, especially in the medical community, whether it helps or not. But I had, as a result of that feedback, when I was doing PowerPoints in the classroom, I always made sure that with my white backgrounds, I didn't have a white background, I had a slightly coloured background, but then everybody could read it. So maybe, as we have on the screen here, your chat maybe could be a little blue, or we could have slightly different colours, so it would be subtle, and everybody wouldn't mind, but then it'd be inclusional.
Okay.
So that you would be segregating, separating, making somebody feel as if they're away from the community, that everybody's a part of the same one.
Okay, so this is really good. I'm going to research into this more. We have an external company that helps us out with the accessibility. In the chat, you can see there's the options tab, and that's where we give the ability to increase the font size. It wouldn't be too hard to do something where we increase the contrast or provide a couple presets in terms of different ways of showing the chat. So,
yeah, I mean, thank you. Yeah, no, this is just my knowledge. I haven't got any like medical things to back it up, but there's stuff out there and arguments. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be able to find something. Thank you.
Good feedback. Very good. Okay. So I was just asked to do a quick screen sharing, so let me do that. Okay. So I have two options when I screen share. I can screen share a region of my desktop or the full screen. Let's see. And what I'll do is I'll screen share a region a little bit larger so I can start sharing. Okay, so if I go, see if I go to iMoot, I will find the iMoot site. There we are. So I have multiple monitors here. So doing a region allows me to move this region around, and other folks can, and I can just sort of highlight the areas that I want to share. If you're on a single computer with a laptop, say for example, you'd probably just share your full screen. But yeah, I have a blue region here which I can move around. So as I go through it, you can see it's not fast enough to share a video file. It's meant for sharing an application, interacting with applications. Again, more pedagogic tutoring. If you want to share a video file, you would put a link into the chat and just ask people to look at it. Any plans to share an application? Easily share Safari while presenting to Firefox. The only problem with that is you got to run something on your computer that has access to the applications. So where the desktop sharing right now is in Java, as I alluded to as well, we're working on other ways to do desktop sharing because Firefox and Chrome support sharing the desktop through WebRTC. So no, traditionally there was two ways to do desktop sharing. You downloaded and installed something on your computer, or you ran it in Java. And we took the Java approach because it was cross-platform, and we literally could avoid a lot of the support issues that, running a Dell Latitude with Windows 7 and your desktop sharing doesn't work. Please figure out why. So Java's been it's been decent. We've done a lot of work over the years to make it as fast as we possibly could, and it's been serviceable. We certainly seen it used here in the iMoot. There's a little, Chrome has stopped supporting running Java applets. This was recent, and they were quite open about it as well. Firefox, if you're going to want to present with desktop sharing, use Firefox. It will, and you don't have, only the instructor needs to use Firefox. The students don't. And Firefox will launch the applet. You can choose full screen or region. and you'll be able to share your desktop or a region of it. So if you need a screen share to present high def weather, meteorology loops, like satellite stuff, no, it wouldn't be fast enough. You know, if you're going to do like a, you know, Maya to show how to do a 3D animation, the desktop sharing in BigBlueButton probably wouldn't be fast enough. Well, I think you'll find this improvements that we're working on that will make it faster. But you know, my recommendation in all these cases is just try it out. And if it's fast enough, great. If it's not, you know, we're working on making it faster. Any other questions? Good questions, by the way. Every now and then I get asked, why did you call it BigBlueButton? This goes back many years. Partly it was, we needed a product name that when it was spoken, people could recognize it and even type it out without having to be told or spell out what the name is. And the other was, it had to be unique enough that we could get the domain name for it, and a search term that pretty much would hit what our project was doing. So that's, but there is an analogy to it. We were talking early on, since we wanted BigBlueButton, we wanted our project to be as simple as pressing a single big blue button. And then we thought, well, we could name it BigBlueButton. And we thought, oh, we can't do that. Then as we use the name more and more, we thought, you know what? It's memorable, and we can build a brand around it. And you can look at Yahoo and Google. It's not so much the name, it's the brand around it. So we got the name, and the brand is always a promise plus a delivery. You know, the product promises something and it delivers on it. BigBlueButton, our promise is that we want to provide remote students a high quality online learning experience. People may not have as high expectations of open source projects as of commercial projects, but it's just software development. You know, if you work hard enough at it, you can build something that, if you start with sort of like average expectations and you exceed them, then you are delivering your promise. You're exceeding your promise. And that's how I like to think we built a brand up around BigBlueButton over the years. And we just focus on online learning. There are many markets that we could apply to, but it's the K-12, higher education, and corporate training more and more these years, but more and more recently. But it's the student-teacher relationship. Hence the things like closed captioning, support for screen readers, and things that would help on the pedagogic side. You won't see remote control of desktops in BigBlueButton. I don't think you'll ever see it. Other commercial web conferencing systems will provide that. That's not something that we see as a priority. There's lots of other things we want to do first. You can actually skin BigBlueButton. The documentation is up at our website. If you're a developer, you can set up a development environment. The skin file is really just a CSS file. So it's possible to change the look of it. When we see other companies embed BigBlueButton in their products, more often than not, they just use it and they actually refer to it as BigBlueButton, which is great. It helps the project spread. And it also makes it easier to incorporate newer versions of the product as well. Okay, we're almost coming up to the end of the time, so maybe one or two more questions if anybody has anything else they want to ask. Not, no worries. There's more presentations to come from other folks. All right, I think I'm going to stop the recording. I can do that. Thanks for coming, everybody.